When you picture a 17th century Puritan leader, a very specific image probably comes to mind. You picture someone austere, someone elitist, rigidly dogmatic, and entirely intolerant of anyone outside their immediate inner circle. For much of early colonial history, that stereotype holds up perfectly, but it falls apart when you look at the life of John Eliot. He was a highly respected Puritan minister who broke nearly every social and religious rule of his era. This is a man who hosted a French Catholic Jesuit missionary for the winter. When Governor John Winthrop proposed a treaty with local tribes, Eliot publicly objected, arguing that the general public, not the elite ministers, needed to make the final decision. He even established a school that placed Black, Indigenous, and white students in the same classroom. Eliot believed that you will not do incredible things without an incredible dream. By pursuing that incredible dream through relentless, grinding labor, he generated a staggering number of America's foundational firsts. These anomalies suggest that early colonial progress didn't only come from the top down. Often it was driven by the quiet, persistent subversion of leaders who prioritized community over the rigid mandates of the elite. Eliot's early years were defined by loss and distance. While studying at Cambridge University, he was orphaned by his junior year. A few years later, the plague forced him to flee the school entirely. By 1631, he had endured a 10-week ocean crossing on a ship called the Lion to reach the shores of Massachusetts. This early map of the harbor shows the distance between the hub of Boston and its surrounding settlements. When Eliot arrived, the prominent First Church of Boston immediately offered him a highly coveted pastoral post. He turned it down. He chose instead to move south to Roxbury to serve a tiny congregation of just 25 people. He had promised these specific people in England that if they crossed the Atlantic, he would be their pastor. To Eliot, that prior commitment was far more important than social climbing in the colonial capital. This rejection of prestige established the pattern for his career. For the next 60 years, he remained embedded in a single local community, focusing his energy on grassroots service and education rather than moving up the colonial hierarchy. That local focus eventually led to his most ambitious project, translating the entire Bible, all 1,180 pages of it, into the Algonquin Wampanoag language. At the time, the language had no written literature. Eliot had to learn it by ear and construct the translation entirely from scratch. He worked without the aid of existing dictionaries, lexicons, or grammar guides. Look closely at the center of this title page, translated into the Indian language. Printed in 1663, this artifact became the very first Bible ever published in America. His peers were so struck by the scale of this work that the historian Cotton Mather noted that Eliot's name spelled backward formed a telling anagram, T-O-I-L-E, toil. Eliot's historical output wasn't the result of effortless genius. It was the product of a specific, grinding persistence. He achieved his goals by simply refusing to stop working on them. Eliot applied that same focus to his interpersonal relationships. When a bitter rival who had been writing against him fell ill, Eliot and his wife Hannah spent weeks nursing the man back to health. Once he recovered, Eliot befriended him, eventually turning an outspoken enemy into a supporter. This generosity was often aggressive. On one occasion, the church treasurer tied Eliot's salary into a handkerchief, using incredibly tight knots to prevent the minister from giving it all away on his walk home. When Eliot visited a poor widow and found he couldn't untie the knots, he simply handed her the entire bundle and walked out. He scaled this empathy into permanent organizations. In 1645, he founded the Roxbury Latin School to ensure the youth in his community were educated. It remains the oldest continuous high school in America. In Jamaica Plain, he established a school that ignored contemporary social barriers. He designed it as an integrated classroom where Black, Indian, and white students were all taught the same curriculum together. He also pushed for the creation of the Indian College at Harvard University. Fittingly, the basement of that exact brick building eventually housed the printing press used to stamp out the pages of his Algonquin Bible. Eliot's personal kindness wasn't a quirk, it was his primary tool for creating organizations. He used empathy to build tangible, lasting institutions in a society that was otherwise defined by rigid exclusion. The legacy of Eliot's labor weathered the most brutal realities of the 17th century. The schools he fought for survived the fires, plagues, and the devastation of King Philip's War in 1675. Those institutions are still active today. Roxbury Latin continues to send a high percentage of its graduates to Harvard, and his integrated school survives as a school of fine arts on Eliot Street. Eliot believed that incredible dreams were the only path to incredible things. Yet, despite his massive institutional impact, he remained profoundly humble. In his own writings, he described himself merely as a shrub in the wilderness. History often remembers the loud mandates of the governing elite, but the survival of Eliot's work suggests that some of the most durable parts of the American project grew from the quiet, relentless labor of those who chose to include rather than exclude.